To conclude, it can be said that object-oriented cutting is a complex process by which the woodworker mentally pictures the final object and accordingly decides how to cut the raw timber. Generally speaking, in the fine cabinet making field, special attention is paid to achieving harmony of grain and color in the assembled elements, because one of its characteristics is which several elements, such as boards and posts, are joined to make such artifacts as cabinets and boxes. According to Shinpei Kimura, harmony and balance of color and grain among the various parts of a cabinet or box are very important. When deciding how to cut a board in order to make a cabinet, he takes into consideration both the inside and the outside surfaces of a board, as well as the harmony and balance of colors. According to Shinpei, in order to obtain a harmonious surface, only one wood species should be used, and the wood grain of that cabinet has to run continuously around all four sides. If figured wood is used, it is important that the decorative features do not become too pronounced and distracting. The traditional Japanese chests called Tansu are usually made from solid pieces of wood, because relatively large boards have to be used in their construction. For this reason, several of the interviewed woodworkers prefer to buy whole logs. This is true of Sakai Hirowuki, who makes chests of drawers of Paulownia wood. He considers the selection and the cutting of the log to be a part of the Kidori process. He chooses an appropriate log by observing the end grain, which tells him what he needs to know about the grain of the wood inside the log. He decides which board will be used for which part of the chest. The most beautiful pieces will be used for the front, while the others will be used for the other sides of the chest. The carver or sculptor has to orient the wood block so that the grain will appear to best advantage, and, at the same time, he must avoid weak points which are liable to break. Woodworkers start cutting the wood from a rectangular wood block, which is slightly higher, larger, and thicker than the final object. They imagine the block to be a box, into which the final object has to fit. The direction of the grain determines the piece's ultimate look. The side with the straight grain has a more subdued feeling than the side with the flat sawn grain. If the block were to be replaced in the stem, one side would face the axis of the stem. The other would face outward. The outward surface is considered more beautiful. When the sculptor has decided which side to make the main surface, he draws an outline of the desired work on the block. Mask carver Kudos Hogo explains that he usually carves his masks out of straight-grained wood block. When he uses flat-sawn grained wood, he aligns the face of the mask so it corresponds with the outside surface of the wood. Finally, the main concern in the bentwork and turning fields is how to avoid defects such as knots in the wood, a skill that requires a good understanding of how the wood grows. The aesthetic quality of the grain is very important in turning, even when a great number of pieces are to be manufactured. Turned items are usually objects of everyday use, and are manufactured in great numbers from the material of unexceptional quality. The following example illustrates how a woodworker who manufactures wood cores used in making Ishikawa Prefecture's Uemanaka lacquerware goes about cutting her wood. Japanese zelkova stems provide the main material for making turned wood cores in this region. These logs are relatively inexpensive as they tend to crack easily. Most of the stems show numerous cracks in their radial section. These cracks may have already existed in the standing trees, or else they may have appeared during seasoning. In order to cut the wood material into an appropriate size, the log is first cut into planks slightly thicker than the height of the future object. This way of cutting is characteristic of Uemanaka lacquerware. In the following step, the woodworker carries out the object-oriented cutting, roughly drawing the round forms of the future objects on the good parts of the planks, while avoiding the sapwood and the pith as well as any cracks, knotholes or other defects. The craftsman must imagine the ideal grain for each piece. This forms the real challenge in the field of turning. In general, whenever a woodworker performs the conversion himself with the desired object in mind, this can also be seen as being a part of the object-oriented cutting process.